When I got access to the CS2 closed beta, the shooting felt weird. At first I thought it was just me being bad at the game, but then I came across this post on Reddit. It appears that when you shoot while your crosshair is moving, the bullet will often go to an outdated position of your crosshair. I wanted to test this, so I went inside a deathmatch, tried shooting a wall with the op while flicking, and then slowed the replay down. I found out that even though the last position I was scoped in was right here, my bullet went here. This made me wonder, how often does this happen, and why does it happen? So I started testing. First, I booted up CSGO to get a comparison. I chose this position on Anubis because I thought it would look good in the video, especially in the CS2 part. I stood by this wall and started spinning, using the plus right command to ensure that I'm always spinning at the same speed. I have bound plus attack and minus right to the same key so that I would stop spinning at the exact moment I shoot. And to no one's surprise, all shots ended up exactly on the crosshair. Then I went and did the exact same test in CS2. Oh right, they have disabled binding 2 actions to a single key. So anyway, after I have bound 2 actions to a single key, I went straight to testing. On the very first attempt, the bullet hole was clearly behind the crosshair by quite a lot. It definitely could have cost a missed headshot. I have tried more times and the bullet ended up behind the crosshair most of the time, being in the very center only rarely. The distance behind the crosshair seemed to be random. I will try to explain why this is happening later in the video, after I show you more of the results. Before I try to explain why this might be happening, I have to say that I'm not a game developer and I know little to nothing about how Counter-Strike works. So don't take what I'm saying for granted, I might be wrong. So the big difference between CSGO and CS2 is the tick rate. CSGO runs on a set tick rate of 64, 128 on Faceit, meaning that the game updates 64 times every second and any input needs to wait for a tick to happen to get registered by the game. This can take up to 15 milliseconds. In CS2, they introduced the SUBTICK update system, meaning that your input gets sent immediately to the server and happens as soon as possible. So when all the inputs are immediately sent to the servers, nothing can go wrong, right? For most input devices you use, the answer is yes. The only thing that could ruin the system would be some beast of a device that would register thousands of inputs every second. Well, there is one. You probably know that your mouse works on a DPI system. So, for example, on an 800 DPI, every time you move your mouse 1/800th of an inch, it is registered as an input. On a sensitivity of 1, that makes more than 16,000 inputs every time you do a 360 in CS. Multiply it by 10 and it's 160,000 times the server would have to update if every player did a 360 at the same time. I don't think Valve have servers that can do this kind of tick rate, given that they refuse to even give us 128 tick in CSGO. Once again, I have to say that I don't know that much about how the game works and this part of the video is just what I think might be happening. So please, if you know better than me, correction in the comments would be highly appreciated. But please don't be too mad at me if everything I just said was wrong. So what I would do to prevent a 160,000 tick rate from completely annihilating my servers, and what I think Valve might have done as well, is having a separate tick rate just for your mouse movements. Maybe 64, maybe 128, maybe even more. But based on the shots being this far behind the crosshair, I think they did us dirty with the 64 tick. So if that's what they've done, what I will try to explain is this. When you shoot your gun in CS2, the fire input is sent immediately. But since your mouse position is diluted from the previous tick, the bullet will land there. This would explain why sometimes it's far behind your crosshair and sometimes it's exactly in the middle, since it's pretty much random whether you fire just before the mouse tick happens or if you time it just right to match it perfectly. So if this is what's happening, I figured a fix that sounds simple, but might not be. I don't know, I'm just a guy making a YouTube video. So I think they should obviously keep the separate mouse stick right system, but every time you fire, your mouse position should be set together with the fire input, updating your cursor position just as you fire. Now after you've seen this video, you might be thinking that this is game breaking and CS2 is literally unplayable. But not really. Your bullet only goes behind the crosshair when the crosshair is moving during the shot, and the chances are that you probably stop your crosshair every time you shoot, even if just for a short while. I mean, the worst case scenario with 64-tick is your input is gonna be delayed by 15 milliseconds. 7 milliseconds with 128-tick. And what are the chances you get the worst case scenario, right? CSGO is a gambling game, so getting a bad case scenario seems pretty much impossible to most of its players. But the bug can still be a giant problem for the competitive scene, since that's where most of the crazy fast plays happen. This shot might not have happened if it was played in CS2. Or this shot. Or this one. So Valve, please fix.